The first day my wife, Chloe, was out of town on business. I got home from working late, around 11. The living room was dark, except for a faint sliver of light from under the guest room door. Chloe's younger sister, Ashley, was still awake. I didn't want to disturb her, so I tiptoed into the master bedroom, eager for a hot shower to wash away the day's exhaustion. I tossed my jacket on the chair and instinctively reached for my phone charger on the nightstand. My fingers didn't find the cool plastic of the cable. Instead, they brushed against a slick, soft piece of fabric. I paused and flicked on the bedside lamp. Curled next to the charging block was a single black stocking. It had a lace trim, and the toe seemed to have a faint, almost invisible run in it. A delicate, familiar scent of perfume drifted up to me, the exact same one I'd smelled on Ashley that morning when I dropped Chloe off at the airport. My mind went blank for a second. What was this doing here? On the nightstand in the bedroom I share with my wife? I picked up the stocking. The thin nylon slid through my fingers like a cold, slippery snake, and a wave of inexplicable irritation washed over me. I stood up, clutching the stocking, took a deep breath, and walked to the guest room door. I needed an explanation. I knocked twice. The light inside flickered, and the door opened. Ashley stood there in an oversized cartoon nightshirt, her hair damp and draped over her shoulders, her face gleaming from a recently applied face mask. She looked surprised to see me. "Ethan? Hey, what's up?" "It's pretty late," she said, her voice carrying the bright, crisp tone of a new college grad. My eyes fell to her bare legs. Then I looked up and held out the stocking. "Is this yours?" My voice was calm, but I could hear the hard edge in it. Ashley's gaze dropped to the stocking in my hand. She froze for a moment. Then a blush crept up her cheeks as she took it from me, flustered. "Oh my God. Yeah, it is. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I completely forgot about it," she said, balling it up in her fist like it was a hot potato. "You forgot." I repeated, the words sounding absurd. "Why was on my nightstand?" "Oh, that." Her eyes darted away, pointing vaguely toward the main bathroom. I was taking a shower, and when I got out, I realized Chloe must have put the collapsible drying rack away in storage. I couldn't find it. I saw your bedroom window was open, for a good cross breeze, so I just tossed down the nightstand to dry. I figured it would be quick. The explanation was so ridiculous that for a second, I didn't even know how to respond. "You left it to dry where? On my nightstand? Do you normally use bedroom furniture as a clothesline?" My temper finally frayed, and my voice rose. Ashley shrank back at my tone, and her eyes instantly welled up. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I really wasn't thinking," she said, her voice thick with tears. "I thought you were working all night and wouldn't be back. I figured it would be dry long before you got home, and I could just grab it. I didn't do it on purpose." She looked so innocent, so guileless, as if she'd made a simple, harmless mistake. That pure, fresh out of college air she had. It made my anger feel like punching a pillow. It just deflated. I looked at her, a recent grad, living with us in a new city while her sister was away. Maybe she really was just that clueless. Maybe she was just completely thoughtless. What else could I say? If I kept pushing, I'd look like the bad guy, a grown man picking on a young woman. Or worse, like I had some other motive. "Just don't do it again," I finally managed to say, softening my tone. "There are other places to hang things. Just not in my room. It's not appropriate." Okay, I get it. "I'm really sorry, Ethan," Ashley said, nodding so fast her hair flew. She was so sincere it made my earlier anger feel completely out of line. I turned to walk back to my room. "Good night, Ethan," she called out weakly behind me. I didn't look back, just gave a slight wave. Back in the bedroom, I shut the door, but the faint scent of her perfume seemed to linger in the air. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the now empty nightstand, and the feeling of irritation came back stronger than before. Was I overreacting, or was the whole situation just as weird as it felt? I picked up my phone, thinking I'd text Chloe about it. I typed a few words, then deleted them one by one. What would I even say? "Hey, honey, your sister has dried her lingerie on my nightstand." Chloe would either think I was making a huge deal out of nothing, or she'd get the wrong idea about Ashley. Would it cause a rift between them? I sighed and tossed my phone aside. Maybe I really was just overthinking it. Chapter 2, the stocking incident, was like a stone tossed into a pond. The ripples didn't fade right away. For the next few days, Ashley was on her best behavior, walking on eggshells around me. She started making breakfast waiting until after I'd left for work to come out of her room. In the evenings, she'd make sure she was showered and locked away in the guest room before I got home. This deliberate distance, however, made me feel even more awkward. I started to wonder if I'd been too harsh that night. She was, after all, just a kid fresh out of school, trying to make it in a big city while her older sister was out of town. Friday night, I was working late, as usual, when I got an iMessage from Ashley. "Hey, Ethan, are you coming home for dinner? I made that spicy chicken pasta you like." I stared at the screen, surprised. It was the first time she'd initiated a conversation since the incident. "No, got a deadline." "You go ahead." I typed back out of habit. The moment I hit send, I remembered she was all alone. "You're by yourself. Don't bother cooking. Just order some takeout," I added. She replied almost instantly. "It's okay. I'll wait for you. Just graduated, you know? Every dollar counts." Reading "every dollar counts" dissolved the last bit of resentment I was holding on to. I remembered Chloe asking me to look out for Ashley before she left. "All right, I'll be home as soon as I can." When I walked in the door an hour later, carrying a box of gourmet cupcakes I'd picked up for her, she was in the kitchen, wearing an apron and humming to herself. The dining table was already set with 3 dishes and a soup, steam rising into the warm light. "Ethan, you're back. Go wash up. Dinner's almost ready," she said, smiling so wide her eyes curved into little crescents. She looked like a friendly kitten. For a split second, it felt like the early days of my marriage to Chloe. The warm lighting, the smell of a home-cooked meal, and someone waiting for you to come home. It was a feeling that had become rare in the comfortable routine of my long-term marriage. "Thanks, Ashley. This looks great," I said. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Ashley chattered away about funny things that happened at her internship and stories from college. She was smart and full of life, radiating a youthful energy. I realized that, putting that one awkward incident aside, spending time with her was actually pretty easy. After dinner, I insisted on doing the dishes while Ashley plopped down on the couch with a pint of ice cream to watch TV. When I came out, she patted the cushion next to her. "Ethan, come sit. This Netflix special is hilarious." I walked over and sat down. On the coffee table was my water glass, filled with the specific herbal tea I always drank. On the screen, comedians were doing some ridiculous skit, and Ashley was laughing hysterically. I glanced at her profile in the glow of the TV and felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The scene was so domestic, so comfortable, it was easy to get the wrong impression. "Oh, let me get you a refill," she said, casually picking up my glass and heading toward the kitchen. I watched her go, and my stomach dropped. That glass, it was the one Chloe had bought me from Pike Place Market with a custom cartoon drawing of the two of us on it. It was my mug, exclusively. We had a dozen other glasses in the cabinet, but Ashley had chosen that one. She came back with a refilled glass and held it out to me. "Here you go." I didn't take it. "Ashley," I said, looking at her directly, "please use your own glass next time." Her smile froze on her face, her hand hovering in midair. "What's wrong?" "I just thought the mug was cute, so It's the one your sister bought for me." "It's mine," I said. My tone wasn't harsh, but it was firm. The atmosphere in the room turned to ice. The laughter from the TV suddenly seemed loud and jarring. The color drained from Ashley's face. She quietly placed the mug on the coffee table, far away from me. Then she stood up. "I'm gonna go cut up some fruit," she mumbled, head down, and hurried into the kitchen. I stayed on the couch, frozen. Had I overreacted again? Maybe she really did just think the mug was cute. Maybe it meant nothing. But from the stocking to the mug, these seemingly innocent actions felt like a slow, steady encroachment on the private world Chloe and I had built together. Every one of her thoughtless mistakes felt like she was testing my boundaries. I felt a frustration I'd never experienced before. This wasn't how a man should feel about his young sister-in-law. I realized then that I had to draw a clear, uncrossable line between us. A few minutes later, Ashley came out with a plate of sliced apples, set it on the table, and immediately turned toward her room. "I'm feeling a little tired. You can keep watching, Ethan. Good night." The guest room door clicked shut. I was left alone in the living room with a plate of untouched apples. Chapter 3 that weekend, I planned to work at the office to avoid the awkwardness of being alone in the apartment with Ashley. But just before noon, my phone rang. It was her, and she was audibly sobbing. "Ethan, can you please come home?" My laptop crashed, and I have a proposal due this afternoon. If I don't get in, my boss is going to kill me. She sounded so helpless and panicked. I couldn't refuse a request for help from a crying family member. Okay, don't panic. I'm on my way, I said, shutting down my computer and heading for my car. When I opened the apartment door, Ashley was sitting on the living room floor, cradling her laptop, her eyes swollen and red. Papers were scattered across the coffee table. She'd clearly been scrambling for a while. She looked up at me like I was her savior, and fresh tears started to fall. Ethan, I don't know what happened. It just went to a blue screen, and now it won't boot up at all. I dropped my keys on the counter and squatted down beside her. As a programmer, this kind of troubleshooting was second nature to me. Let me see. I took the laptop and tried a few standard recovery commands, but the system wouldn't launch. The problem seemed more serious than I thought. Ashley sat right next to me, watching my every move, barely breathing. Her knee was almost touching my arm, and that familiar, faint scent of her perfume once again filled my senses. I instinctively shifted my body to create a little more space. I might have to reinstall the OS, but the file's on your desktop. The proposal is on the desktop, she blurted out, her voice filled with despair. It's over. I'm so screwed. My team lead already hates me. He's going to use this as an excuse to fire me. With that, she buried her face in her knees, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I've never been good at handling a crying woman, especially not one who was looking at me as her only hope. In that moment, all my thoughts about boundaries and propriety vanished. Stop crying. There's a way, I said. I can try booting from a Linux drive to pull the files off the hard drive directly. For the next 2 hours, I was completely absorbed in fixing the computer. Ashley stayed by my side the whole time, quietly handing me a glass of water or offering a paper towel to wipe the sweat from my brow. Her eyes were filled with a mix of awe and dependence, a look that would stir a protective instinct in any man. Finally, after a lot of work, the familiar desktop wallpaper flickered onto the screen. Got it. Ashley shot up and, in a burst of excitement, threw her arms around my bicep. Ethan, you're amazing. You're literally my hero. Her body was soft and warm, pressing against me through my thin button-down shirt. I froze completely. Every rational thought told me to push her away immediately, but the feeling of her touch and the genuine joy radiating from her made me hesitate for a split second. She seemed to realize it too, because she blushed and quickly let go. Sorry, I just got a little carried away, she said, looking down, her voice barely a whisper. It's fine, I said, trying to sound nonchalant as I stood up. Get the files copied over so you can finish your work. To thank me, Ashley insisted on taking me out for a fancy dinner. I refused, but we compromised on her cooking for me at home. The atmosphere at dinner was even more relaxed than last time. It seemed Ashley had completely let her guard down, recasting me in her mind from stern brother-in-law to dependable older brother. She complained about how her boss, a Mr. Henderson, was giving her a hard time and how her colleagues were ostracizing her. She pulled out her phone to show me screenshots of her direct messages with him. The messages were sleazy and full of inappropriate suggestions, while Ashley's replies were consistently polite but firm rejections. See, he even asked me to meet him for drinks alone to discuss my performance, Ashley said, pointing at the screen, her eyes turning red again. Everyone on my team gives me the cold shoulder. They say I'm stuck up and not a team player. I don't know how much longer I can take it. Reading the disgusting messages, a hot flash of anger rose in me. A young woman just starting her career, having to deal with scum like that. It must have felt incredibly isolating. This guy is unbelievable, I said. Why didn't you tell Chloe? I can't, she said, shaking her head. You know how she is? She'd go ballistic and march right into my office, and I'd lose my internship for sure. Besides, I don't want her worrying about me while she's on a business trip. Her reasoning was sound, and it made me feel even more protective of her. Ethan, you're the only person here I can count on, she said, looking up at me with those wide, teary eyes. You're like the big brother I never had. Those words, big brother, felt like a magic charm, instantly dispelling all my previous suspicions and defenses. Of course, she just saw me as a brother. Maybe everything really had just been in my head. Don't worry, I said, giving her shoulder a reassuring pat. The gesture felt completely natural within the new sibling framework. If you ever need anything, you tell me. Don't try to handle it alone. As for this Henderson guy, I'll figure out a way to deal with him. Really? Her eyes lit up with hope. Yeah, I nodded, a sense of brotherly responsibility settling over me. That night, I had a FaceTime call with Chloe. When she asked how Ashley was doing, I said, casually, she's doing great. Really settling in. I told her to come to me if she needs anything. Chloe smiled on the other end. Good. I feel so much better knowing you're there to look out for her. After we hung up, I stared out the window into the dark Seattle night. For the first time, I thought that maybe having Ashley here was a good thing. At least, as her brother, I could make sure she was safe. After I promised to help Ashley with her work problem, our relationship shifted into a new gear. She stopped avoiding me and started placing her complete trust in me. She'd ask for my advice on work challenges and confide in me about her daily frustrations. I, in turn, used my own network and experience to discreetly solve a few of her problems. I had a friend who worked as a tech recruiter, so I asked her to quietly look into Mr. Henderson. My friend got back to me a day later and confirmed he had a terrible reputation, a known creep throughout the industry. I had her forward that information anonymously to his company's head of HR. A few days later, Ashley excitedly told me that Mr. Henderson had been transferred to a dead-end department where he had no direct reports. Ethan, you're like my personal superhero, she exclaimed, practically dancing in front of me, her eyes shining with admiration. I just smiled, enjoying the feeling of being needed, of being her hero. It was completely different from my relationship with Chloe. Chloe and I were partners, equals who supported each other. But with Ashley, I was the protector, the all-powerful figure who could solve any problem. This role reversal brought a fresh, exciting ripple to my otherwise quiet life. We started acting like real siblings. On weekends, I'd take her to a restaurant she'd been wanting to try or go see a new movie with her. In return, she took over all the housework, keeping the apartment spotless. Everything felt so natural, so harmonious. I was even getting used to coming home to a waiting dinner and a friendly face. I justified it all as a brother looking out for his younger sister. I constantly reminded myself that this was a responsibility, not a transgression. Until that Friday night. Ashley's company was hosting a mid-year happy hour, and she dressed up for it in a little white dress that made her look both innocent and stunning. Before she left, she did a little twirl in front of me. What do you think? You look great, I said, and I meant it. After she left, the apartment felt cavernously empty. I felt a sudden, sharp pang of loneliness. I flipped through channels on the TV, bored, my mind constantly drifting to the time. At 10:30, my phone rang. It was Ashley. The background was loud, and her words were slurred. Ethan, I drank too much. They all want to go to another bar. Can you come get me? Send me the address, I said without a second of hesitation, grabbing my keys and heading out the door. I found her in front of a crowded brewery in Ballard, completely wasted. A male colleague was holding her up, and her face was flushed. The guy looked relieved to see me. Are you Ashley's family? She had way too much to drink. You should get her home. I nodded and took Ashley from him. Her body was limp, and she leaned her full weight against me. I managed to get her into the passenger seat and buckle her in. The car immediately filled with the mixed scent of alcohol and her perfume. The car moved smoothly through the quiet late-night streets. Ashley leaned back against the headrest, her eyes closed, muttering something under her breath. I turned the music down and focused on driving. Halfway home, she suddenly opened her eyes and turned her head to look at me. Ethan, you're so good to me, she said. You're drunk. Get some rest. But she shook her head and pushed herself up, leaning toward me. Ethan, I have feelings for you. Her voice was soft, but it hit me like a thunderclap. I slammed on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt on the empty road, the seatbelt jerking me forward and then back. I whipped my head around to stare at her, shocked. The dim yellow glow of the streetlights filtered through the windshield, illuminating her hazy eyes and flushed cheeks. She wasn't joking. I could see the raw, stubborn intensity in her gaze. Ashley, you're drunk, I said, my voice hoarse. I'm not drunk, she insisted, her voice rising with intoxicated defiance. I'm perfectly clear, and I mean every word. I have feelings for you. I have since the first day I moved in. Do you have any idea what you're saying? A cold panic washed over me, the feeling of a situation spiraling out of control. I'm your brother-in-law. So what? We're not related by blood. She lunged at me, throwing her arms around my neck. I don't care. I'm in love with you. 100 times, 1,000 times more than my sister is. Her face was getting closer, the scent of booze and perfume threatening to suffocate me. Ashley, look at me. I am your sister's husband. I used every ounce of strength. I had to grab her shoulders and push her back in her seat. That's what I am, what I will always be. My voice trembled with a mix of shock and anger. Pushed away, Ashley just stared at me, the light in her eyes slowly extinguishing. Then, fat tears began to roll down her cheeks. She didn't scream or yell. She just cried silently, a repressed, hopeless sound that was more unsettling than any accusation. I started the car again. Neither of us said another word the rest of the way home. The only sounds were her muffled sobs and the heavy thud of my own heart, each beat louder than the last. I had thought we were like brother and sister. It turned out that was just a story I'd been telling myself. This game we were playing, disguised as family, had been going in the wrong direction from the very beginning. Chapter 5, I got Ashley home and helped her into the guest room. She was silent the entire time, the tears never stopping. I laid her down on the bed, pulled the covers over her, and turned to leave. Ethan, she said suddenly, grabbing the hem of my shirt. I stopped, but didn't turn around. Tonight, can we just pretend I never said any of that? She asked, her voice raspy and thick from crying. Please, don't tell my sister. My heart sank. Her first concern was Chloe. That, at least, made me feel slightly better. She still cared about her sister. Get some rest, I said, pulling my shirt from her grasp and walking out. Back in my own room, I leaned heavily against the closed door, feeling completely drained. My mind was a chaotic mess, replaying her words, I have feelings for you, and the sound of her desperate crying. I picked up my phone and went to Chloe's contact, but I couldn't bring myself to call. What would I say? Your little sister just confessed her love for me? Would Chloe even believe me? A healthy man, living under the same roof with his young, attractive sister-in-law for over a month. The story wrote itself, and I was the villain. Even if she did believe me, what would that do to her? Caught between her husband and her own sister. Telling her would detonate a bomb in the middle of our family. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration and threw the phone onto the bed. The next morning, I was up early. The apartment was quiet. I walked past the guest room. The door was shut tight. I had no idea how I was going to face her. After showering, I got dressed for work. The moment I opened the front door, Ashley opened hers. She was wearing clean sweats, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wasn't wearing any makeup, but her eyes were still puffy. Our eyes met, and the air between us felt thick enough to cut. Morning, Ethan, she said first, her voice low, like a kid who'd been caught doing something wrong. Morning, I replied, looking away. I'm heading to the office. Wait, she called out, rushing over with a thermos in her hand. I made you some of that ginger tea you like. I figured you might have a headache. After last night, I stared at the thermos, and something the guy from the bar said flashed in my mind. He had said she had way too much to drink. He never said anything about me. I hadn't had a single drop of alcohol last night. A tiny, unsettling thought flickered through my mind, too fast to catch. I didn't drink, I said flatly. A strange expression crossed Ashley's face, but she masked it almost immediately. Oh, you just seemed so tired when you got home. I assumed you had. Well, take this to work anyway. It's good for you. She pressed the thermos into my hand. I didn't argue. I just nodded and left. All day at work, I was on edge. Ashley's confession was like a thorn stuck in my side. I started replaying everything that had happened over the past month. The stocking on the nightstand, the use of my personal mug, and last night's supposedly drunken confession. Was this all really just the impulsive actions of a naive young woman overwhelmed by a crush? Or was there something more calculated going on that I wasn't seeing? Just as I was about to pack up for the day, my phone buzzed. It was a picture message from an unknown number. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. It was a photo. The setting was the passenger seat of my car. The subject were me and Ashley. In the picture, Ashley's eyes were closed, her head tilted back, her lips just inches from mine. I was turned toward her, my brow furrowed. The angle was devious. It looked exactly like we were about to kiss. One of us lost in the moment, the other hesitant, but not pulling away. It had been taken last night. My heart plummeted into my stomach, and an icy dread washed over me. I was screwed. There was no explaining this photo. The sender hadn't included any text, no demands. But the silent threat was more terrifying than any ransom note. Who was this? What did they want? My first thought was that sleazy colleague of Ashley's, the one who was supposedly harassing her. Had he followed us? I immediately tried calling the number back, but a recorded voice informed me the number was no longer in service. I sat frozen in my office chair, my hands and feet cold as ice. That photo was a ticking time bomb. The moment it went off, my marriage, my family, everything I worked so hard to build would be obliterated. I had to defuse it before it was too late. I grabbed my jacket and bolted from the office. I had to see Ashley. I had to find out what the hell was going on. Chapter 6. I broke the speed limit most of the way home. I burst through the door to find Ashley on the couch, watching TV with a sheet mask on her face. She jumped, startled by my furious entrance, and sat up straight. "Ethan, what's wrong?" I didn't say a word. I strode over to her and shoved my phone in her face. "What is this? Explain it to me. Now." When Ashley saw the photo, all the color drained from her face. She ripped the mask off and stared at the screen, her body starting to tremble uncontrollably. This is from last night." Her voice was shaking. "Who took this? Who would do this? How the hell should I know who took it?" The rage I'd been suppressing all day finally erupted. "I'm asking you, who else was there last night besides the colleague who brought you downstairs?" Her eyes were wide with terror and confusion. She shook her head frantically. "No one. It was just him. Ethan, it has to be him. It was that guy." She grabbed my arm like it was a lifeline. "He works for Henderson, the manager I told you about. Henderson has been trying to get me, too. He must have sent someone to follow me. He's trying to use this picture to blackmail me." Her explanation sounded plausible. It was the same conclusion I had jumped to. "Ethan, what are we going to do? Is he going to use this to force me to do something?" The tears started flowing again, but this time it wasn't quiet sobbing. It was raw, hysterical panic. "If Chloe sees this, I'm dead. We're both dead." She was crying her eyes out, acting as if her world was ending. Seeing her fall apart like that, my anger began to subside, replaced by a reluctant mix of pity and guilt. After all, she was in this mess because she'd confessed her feelings for me. I was a part of this whether I liked it or not. "Stop crying." I forced myself to calm down. "Crying isn't going to fix anything. Think. Besides Henderson, is there anyone else you might have pissed off?" She shook her head, sobbing. "No one. I just started there. I've been so careful. It has to be him." I believed her. A new intern wouldn't have had time to make complex enemies. "Did the person who sent the photo make any demands?" she asked between sobs. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Just the picture." Then the number went dead. "They'll contact you again. I know it," Ashley said, her eyes filled with despair. "Ethan, what should we do? Should we call the police?" "The police?" I immediately shot that down. "And say what? That you confessed your feelings for me, and someone took a picture? That's not a crime. It would just blow up in our faces and guarantee your sister finds out." Ashley trembled even more violently. "Then, what do we do?" she pleaded, looking at me as if I had all the answers. "Ethan, you have to help me. I can't let Chloe find out. I can't be the one who ruins her marriage." Her words were all about protecting her sister, about her fear of the consequences. It made me even more certain that she was just an innocent victim caught in a horrible situation. "Don't panic," I said, taking a deep breath and trying to sound steady. "We have to figure out who sent this before they make their move. I'll find out who's behind this." "Ow! Give me the name of that colleague, his department, and Henderson's full name. Tell me everything you know about them," I said. As a programmer, I had my ways. It wasn't impossible to trace someone's digital footprint, to map out their connections through social media and corporate networks. "Ethan, thank you." Ashley looked at me with the eyes of someone who had just survived a disaster. "You have to believe me. I had no idea this would happen." "I believe you," I said. In that moment, I had to. We were tied together in this mess. If that photo got out, we would both go down. Neither of us slept that night. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the living room light burning until dawn, each lost in our own thoughts. An unprecedented sense of crisis had bound the two of us together, two people who should have never been this close. I told myself this wasn't the time to assign blame. The priority was to find the enemy hiding in the shadows and defuse the bomb hanging over our heads. For Chloe, and for our family, I had to. Chapter 7. For the next 2 days, I poured all of my energy and technical skills into a secret investigation. Ashley gave me all the information she had on her colleague, Leo Way, and Mr. Henderson. I started with public company info and quickly found their social media profiles. I became a digital detective, poring over every post, analyzing their friend lists, searching for any clue, any connection. During this time, Ashley became quiet and compliant. She stopped her cheerful chatter about work and life. She just did her chores and then locked herself in her room. The air in the apartment was thick with tension. Whenever we'd cross paths in the living room, she would look at me with a complex expression, a mixture of fear, dependence, and guilt, and whisper, "Ethan, any luck? Still looking?" "Don't worry," I'd say, as much to reassure myself as her. The investigation was going nowhere. Leo's online presence was completely normal, just another young professional. And while Henderson had a bad reputation, he was careful online. His social media was all corporate PR and cheesy motivational quotes. I found nothing connecting them to the photo. I even tried to technically trace the burner phone number that sent the picture. The trail went cold. It was a virtual number, its last ping coming from a busy downtown commercial district. On Monday evening, I came home, utterly exhausted. Ashley had made dinner and was waiting for me at the table. "Hey, Ethan, dinner's ready." I had no appetite, but I sat down anyway. You couldn't find anything, could you?" she asked timidly. I didn't lie. I just shook my head. The trail's gone cold. The color drained from her face. "So, what do we do now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if he just sends the picture straight to Chloe?" Seeing her panic, I felt a surge of my own frustration. This whole situation was a crushing weight. I was fighting a threat from the outside while trying to manage her emotional state on the inside. He probably won't, I reasoned. If his target was Chloe, he would have sent it to her from the start. His target is either money or you. Me. Ashley bit her lip, tears welling up. "I don't have any money. And if he wants me..." "Don't go there." I cut her off. "As long as he's not contacting us, we still have time." I said it, but I knew we were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. The waiting was the worst part. After dinner, I shut myself in my home office and went back to my digital search. I couldn't accept defeat. I decided to change my approach. If I couldn't find anything on Leo or Henderson, I would start with Ashley herself. I pulled up her social media accounts. Her feeds were pristine, mostly pictures of food, scenic hikes, and inspirational quotes. The perfect image of a bright, happy young woman. I kept scrolling back. A year ago, 6 months ago, suddenly a group photo caught my eye. It was from a few months back, before she'd even graduated. She was at dinner with a group of friends, laughing. Sitting right next to her, their shoulders almost touching, was a guy I recognized. I zoomed in on the photo, studying his face. A few seconds later, my heart skipped a beat. It was Leo, the same colleague who had supposedly helped his sleazy boss harass her. My mind started buzzing. Ashley had told me Leo was Henderson's crony. She said all her coworkers were giving her the cold shoulder. But in this photo, taken long before her internship ever started, she and Leo looked like close friends. They already knew each other. A terrible realization began to form in my mind. I felt like I was caught in a massive, invisible net, and all my frantic efforts were just me struggling within its confines. I clicked on Leo's profile from the photo tag. His feed was set to private. Not giving up, I searched for interactions between their two accounts. And then I found it. A comment. A few weeks ago, Ashley had made a vague, sad post about feeling stressed and underappreciated. Leo had commented, "Ash, hang in there. It's all going to work out." He'd even added a supportive emoji. Ashley had replied to him with a simple thanks. This wasn't the interaction of a victim and her harasser's accomplice. This was one friend comforting another. She had lied to me. From the very beginning, she had been lying. I leaned back in my chair, the blood turning to ice in my veins. I thought back over the last month, all the little incidents, the perfectly timed tears, the worshipful glances. I thought I was protecting an innocent victim. I was just a pawn in her game. What I had perceived as her testing my boundaries was actually a calculated seduction. What I thought was a drunken confession was a scripted performance. And what I believed was a dangerous crisis was a drama she had directed and starred herself. I took a deep breath, my chest tight. I had seen her as a naive girl who needed protection. I never imagined she was a predator, using innocence as her weapon. And I was her target. Chapter 8, I sat in my office, smoking one cigarette after another. The room filled with haze, but my mind was sharper and clearer than it had been in weeks. I didn't confront Ashley right away. I knew I couldn't. Without definitive proof, any accusation would be met with a flood of tears and more lies. I'd seen her perform before. I wasn't going to fall for it again. I needed one more piece of evidence, something she couldn't possibly deny. My focus returned to the mysterious phone number. It was a virtual number, which meant it had to have been generated through an app or a website. And any online activity, no matter how well hidden, leaves a trace. The next day, I took a personal day off from work and dedicated myself completely to the hunt. I used every technical trick I knew, even paying for access to gray market data brokers to get the information I needed. It was a painstaking process, like trying to follow an invisible thread through an endless digital labyrinth. Hours ticked by. The afternoon sun streamed into the office, but I felt no warmth, only a bone-deep chill. Then, around 3 in the afternoon, I had a breakthrough. I had traced the IP address used to register the virtual number. The user had masked it with a proxy, but by peeling back layer after layer, I found the original source. The IP address belonged to a location I knew all too well. Our home. More specifically, our living room's Wi-Fi router. The registration time was 1 week before the photo incident. My hand started to shake, not with anger, but with a profound, surreal shock. I finally understood why the sender had sent one picture and then vanished. They didn't need to contact me again. They were right here in the apartment with me, watching my panic, observing my futile investigation. But that wasn't the final piece. Registering a virtual number still required some form of identification for verification. I kept digging. 2 hours later, the final answer appeared on my screen, and the room seemed to tilt around me. The virtual number had been registered with a government-issued ID. The name on the ID was Ashley Jiang. The issue date on the card showed it was an old college ID that she had long ago reported as lost. Everything clicked into place. She had used her old, lost ID to register a virtual number while connected to our home Wi-Fi. Then, she'd had her friend, Leo, take a photo from a deliberately misleading angle at the perfect moment. Finally, she used the burner number to send it to me, creating a phantom menace. There was no stalker. There was no blackmailer. The director, producer, and star of this entire show was Ashley. I shut down my laptop and leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes. The last month flashed through my mind like a movie. The stocking on my nightstand, the first probe. Her using my personal mug, the second invasion. Her feigned helplessness over her broken laptop, a play for sympathy. Her tearful stories of a harassing boss, a script to paint herself as a victim. The drunken confession, the climax of the first act. And the threatening photo, the masterstroke designed to bind me to her, to make me her unwilling co-conspirator. It was a brilliant, twisted plan. Every step was carefully calculated. She had expertly manipulated my sense of responsibility, my protective instincts, even my ego. She had played me for a complete fool, and I had charged headfirst into her trap, losing sleep and peace of mind on her behalf. I even started to wonder if the DMs from Mr. Henderson were fake. A woman with her level of cunning could easily fabricate a few screenshots. I opened my eyes and looked out at the setting sun, my heart cold as stone. I didn't know why she had done it. Was it jealousy? A desire for what she couldn't have? It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I knew the truth. That evening, Ashley came home from her internship. She seemed surprised to see me sitting on the living room couch. "Ethan, you're home early," she said, her tone light and casual as she kicked off her shoes, as if nothing was wrong in the world. "Yeah," I said, my gaze fixed on her. She must have sensed something was off. She walked over, her face adopting its usual mask of cautious concern. "Ethan, is everything okay? Did you find something?" "I found a few things," I nodded. Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at me, her eyes wide with apprehension. I didn't lay my cards on the table, just yet. Instead, I asked a different question. Leo Wei is your friend from college, right? Ashley's face changed in a flash, but she recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. Oh yeah, how did you know? It's such a small world. Crazy that we ended up at the same company. Still acting. Even now, she was still performing. It is a small world, I said, looking her directly in the eye. I spoke each word slowly and clearly. Small enough that someone could use their old, lost ID and their own home's Wi-Fi to send their brother-in-law a threatening, staged photograph. In that instant, the air in the room solidified. The color vanished from Ashley's face. The panic, the shock, the disbelief that flashed in her eyes was no longer an act. It was real. She had never imagined I could have figured it all out. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stood up, looking down at her. I always saw you as a naive young woman who needed to be protected, I said, the words I'd been replaying in my mind finally coming out. I never realized you were using that innocence as a weapon. Her body swayed, and as if her strings had been cut, she collapsed onto the couch behind her. The truth was a dagger, and I had just handed it to her. Chapter 9, the living room was shrouded in a dead silence. Ashley sat collapsed on the couch, her face a ghostly white. She stared at the floor, her long hair falling forward to hide her expression. All I could see were her hands, twisting together in her lap, so tightly her knuckles were white. I stood before her, waiting. Would she try to lie her way out of it? Would she break down in tears? Or would she finally tell the truth? After a long moment, just when I thought she might never speak again, she moved. She slowly lifted her head. The tears were gone. So was the practiced look of innocence and fear. In its place was an expression I had never seen on her before, a bitter cocktail of resentment, defiance, and the reckless abandon of someone who had nothing left to lose. You're right. I did it all. Her voice was quiet but unnervingly clear, like a pebble dropped into a deep, silent well. I put the stocking there on purpose. I used your mug on purpose. I broke my own laptop, and I had Leo take that picture. She confessed, just like that. It was as if admitting it all had lifted a tremendous weight, and she could finally breathe again. I looked at her, not with the anger I had expected to feel, but with a profound and hollow sense of sorrow. Why? It was the only question I needed an answer to. Why? She repeated, and then she laughed. A sharp, high-pitched sound that echoed unnervingly in the quiet room. You're asking me why? She got to her feet and walked toward me, her eyes no longer holding the doe-eyed innocence I was used to, but burning with a wild, manic fire. Since we were kids, she got everything. The bigger bedroom, the prettier clothes, all of our parents' attention. She was smarter than me. She was prettier than me. Everyone loved her. Everyone always chose her. Her voice grew louder, cracking with years of repressed fury. And what was I? I was just her shadow, a worthless accessory. It was always, Ashley, why can't you be more like your sister? Or, Ashley, if only you were half as responsible as Chloe. I have spent my entire life living in her perfect, golden shadow. Istère daher, stunt. Chloe had never mentioned any of this. From what I'd seen, they'd always had a good relationship. And then, she met you. Ashley's eyes locked onto mine, and the possessiveness in her gaze sent a chill down my spine. You were perfect. A great career, stable, kind. You knew how to take care of someone. Why her? Why did she deserve to get the perfect man too? I wasn't going to stand for it, she screamed, her voice raw. What does she have that I don't? I'm younger. I understand you better. I can give you the adoration and excitement she can't. I'm the one you should be with. And there it was. The truth. This was never just about a crush. This was a war that had been raging since childhood, fueled by 2 decades of jealousy. And I was nothing more than the trophy she planned to claim to finally defeat her sister. How pathetic, and how utterly absurd. So you planned all of this? I asked, my voice cold. You were going to use these disgusting tactics to destroy your sister's marriage, just so you could take her place? Disgusting. She looked at me as if I'd told the world's funniest joke. All's fair in love and war. I was fighting for what I wanted. What's so wrong with that? The only one wrong here is you. You were falling for me, weren't you? She stepped closer, invading my personal space. When you were solving my problems, when you were basking in my admiration, when my confession made your heart race. Are you going to stand there and tell me you felt nothing? I looked at her face, now inches from mine, and felt a wave of revulsion. I admit, I said, meeting her crazed gaze without flinching. For a moment, I was fooled by the illusion you created, but that wasn't attraction. That was the protective instinct any decent man feels when he thinks a vulnerable person needs his help. And you exploited that. I paused, then delivered the final blow. There can be no love without respect, and you have none for me. All you have is a desperate need to possess and to win. You don't see me as a person. My words were like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing the fire in her eyes. She froze, staring at me. To you, I'm not a husband or a partner or a man, I continued. I'm just a prize, a tool you can use to finally one-up your sister. You're a tragic person, Ashley. You've spent your entire life trying to beat her instead of trying to be yourself. Even if you had succeeded, even if you won me, you'd still be miserable because you never actually wanted me. You just wanted to win. Ashley began to tremble, the defiant rage draining from her face, replaced by the blank, shattered look of someone whose entire worldview had just been dismantled. No, that's not true, she whispered, as much to herself as to me. Pack your things. I want you gone before Chloe gets back tomorrow, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. I will handle this. But the issues between you and your sister, that's your family's problem to solve. I'm done. Without another look, I turned, walked back to my office, and shut the door. From the other side, I heard it, the sound of her finally breaking a raw, gut-wrenching sob that had been held back for far too long. I leaned against the door and closed my eyes, feeling a weariness that went clear to my bones. The charade was finally over. Chapter 10. The next morning, I woke up just as the sky was beginning to lighten. I walked out of my bedroom into the empty living room. The guest room door was open. I went to it and looked inside. The room was immaculate, as if no one had ever stayed there. The bed was made, the sheets and comforter folded neatly. On the nightstand was a single key. She was gone. No note, no final words. She had vanished as quietly as she had arrived. I picked up the key, an unidentifiable feeling churning in my gut. The whole ordeal felt like a bizarre nightmare. Now that it was over, all that remained was a mess to clean up and a deep, lingering exhaustion. I went through the apartment, purging every last trace of her. I threw out the bottle of perfume she always wore and shoved the mug she had used at the very back of the kitchen cabinet. I wanted the apartment to be exactly as it was when Chloe left. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Chloe. Honey, I changed my flight. The project wrapped up early, so I'm coming home this afternoon. Her voice was bright with the joy of someone on their way home. My heart seized in my chest. This afternoon? So soon? I had no idea how I was going to explain Ashley's sudden absence. Are you there? Not happy to have me back, Chloe teased. Of course I am, I said, steadying myself, trying to sound normal. What time's your flight? I'll come get you. After I hung up, I just sat on the couch, staring out the window. A much bigger storm was on the horizon. At 4 o'clock, I was waiting for Chloe at the arrivals gate. I spotted her immediately, looking sharp in a business suit, pulling her suitcase through the crowd. She broke into a run when she saw me, throwing her arms around me and burying her face in my chest. I miss you so much. I held her, taking in her familiar scent, my mind a turbulent sea of emotions. I had come so close to losing this. On the drive home, Chloe chattered on about her trip, and I gave one-word replies, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to start the conversation. We pulled up to our building, and as she unbuckled her seatbelt, she asked casually, "So, where's Ashley? Does she know I'm back today?" I got her a present. The moment of reckoning had arrived. "Chloe," I said, killing the engine and turning to face her. "There's something I have to tell you." My serious tone made her smile fade. "What is it? What happened?" "Ashley moved out. Moved out." Chloe looked baffled. "When? Why? Did she find her own place?" "No," I said, taking a deep breath, bracing myself for the fallout. "It's because we had an actor living in our house." Chloe stared at me, completely lost. Instead of trying to explain, I took out my phone and pulled up an audio file. It was a recording from my confrontation with Ashley last night. I had left a voice recorder running just outside my office door. At the time, I wasn't sure why I did it. Maybe it was the programmer in me, always making backups. Or maybe, subconsciously, I knew this moment was coming. I pressed play. First, there was a long silence. Then, my cold, quiet voice, followed by Ashley's defiant confession. You're right. I did it all. I put the stocking there on purpose. I used your mug on purpose. I was just jealous. Why does she get everything? Including you. On the recording, Ashley's voice was shrill and venomous, filled with a crazed desperation. Her words were like daggers. As the audio played, the color drained from Chloe's face. She clutched the fabric of her pants, her body trembling slightly. When the recording reached the part where Ashley screamed, "I'm the one you should be with," Chloe lunged forward and hit pause. The car was once again filled with a heavy, dead silence. I watched her, awaiting my sentence. Would she scream at me? Would she break down and cry? She did neither. She just sat there, staring blankly ahead, as if her soul had left her body. After what felt like an eternity, she slowly turned to look at me. Her eyes were dry and clear of anger. All I saw was a profound, bottomless exhaustion and a sadness I couldn't comprehend. "So that's what you meant," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "An actor in the house." Yes, I managed to choke out. She was quiet for another moment, then asked a question I never expected. "Where is the picture?" I froze. She looked at me, her gaze piercingly clear. "Don't tell me you went through all of this and didn't get a copy of the photo." I opened my phone's gallery, found the staged picture, and handed it to her. She studied it carefully for a few seconds. Then, right in front of me, she deleted it. "Okay," she said, handing the phone back as if nothing had happened. She pushed open her door. "Let's go home. I am tired." I got out and followed her into the building. I watched her back. She wasn't tall, but she stood perfectly straight. And in that moment, I understood. Maybe I never needed to explain anything to her. My wife was far stronger and far more perceptive than I had ever given her credit for. She knew her sister better than I ever could. She knew she had been in a war with her for 20 years. But the war was over now, and it was up to the two of us to clean up the ruins. Our home would never feel the same. And maybe, after all of this, we wouldn't either.